All right, I'm back with John Jaquish, and every time I got John on, this is literally organic for all of you guys because I get all ends of the spectrum here telling me, why do I have John all the time? Some of you guys got strong opinions. I always say I thought John is an interesting character. He's got new, interesting, innovative stuff in the world of band-related stuff. And he's always just fun to interview because I can ask him whatever the heck I want, and I can tell you a few people let me do that kind of unfiltered. So primarily what I want to do in this video is to address his new Westside Barbell program that is affiliated obviously with X3, and I'll flash on the screen so you guys can see this if you don't know what it's about. And we'll get into why I think that's pretty significant. We had this discussion a while back, but the program was not released, so I might cut some old footage in there and some old discussions and questions we had. So I'm going to rehash all of that. So ultimately, I want to leave here giving questions to John, also with a devil's advocate, skeptical mindset, because I know you guys watching are thinking the same thing, especially when we're talking about that you don't need free weights, you don't need big equipment. And if you guys have seen my channel in the background, I do have big equipment, I do have free weights, so it's not like I'm just trying to chill and just talk about John's band stuff. By the way, as I always say, I don't get anything from these reviews or interviews or anything like that, other than I have an X3 affiliate. If you want to check that out, that's down below as well as always. But just like you guys, I'm a consumer. I'm intrigued too. So I want to ask John these hard-hitting questions that you guys probably have. And also at the end of the day, just want you guys leaving here understanding what is this Westside Barbell X3 Training Academy. So first question, John, is we had you on, I had you on before, and I lit people up about you talking about how the majority of people, almost all people in the NFL, were using the X3. And we can hit on that a little bit. But I really think as big a deal as that was, I thought you guys using Westside or Westside giving you their namesake was equally, if not on a same level, because Westside Barbell is while they made themselves kind of somewhat famous through Louie Simmons and conjugate method, they also were very big in revolutionizing, really promoting resistance bands, variable resistance in the weight room for sports performance. And not only that, I think people think of Westside Barbell. They think barbell, they don't think band barbell. Most people think of barbell free weights. But now here they are putting a stamp of approval onto your company, which people love you or hate you. That says something about their brand. So let's just start with that. How did you guys get that relationship? And maybe also a related question, how much does variable resistance and resistance bands have a play in Westside as a whole?
I'll answer that last question first. Basically, I'd say about 90% of what you do at Westside Barbell is variable resistance. So they understand variable resistance like I understand variable resistance, as in it's just superior. Like if you need to do a movement, practice a movement. Now also keep in mind, the programming I developed is a little more aesthetics and bodybuilding focused, just because I think that's like the regular guy walking down the street is not really worried about his 40-yard time. But he sure would love to have his arms a little tighter in his t-shirt, right?
Yeah.
So that's why that programming was like that. I didn't actually ask Westside Barbell to do this. It was their idea. And the reason was, I mean, you saw this over the years. Like there was 40 plus NFL players that were using X3 and asking me questions and saying, like when the squat belt came out, I had like 30 to maybe 50 NFL players email the company and ask if they could get a squat belt. And so it's like, who's telling you guys about this? And finally, I got somebody to tell me, and it's like, oh, Westside Barbell is. And I was like, wait, they're recommending X3? And they're like, oh yeah, like they do all the programming. That was news to me. Like I didn't know that. And
I don't want to interrupt you, but I want to pause there because people might hear that, and my only devil was like, well, is that true, John, or not? But I have to say that like the fact that you are saying this would be throwing Westside Barbell under the bus. So if it was not true, what I would say, and not trying to defend you, would be like, well, the easiest thing would be like that would be a stupid business decision to just say that, and it wasn't,
yeah,
because they could just come out and say that. And
thank you for pointing that out. Right.
And the NFL players, because again, when you first told me the NFL, I'm like, well, I don't know, does the whole NFL use it? I don't know. But like you said, NFL guys, those guys don't just put their name or anything, but they do have, there are pictures on their website legitimately showing famous NFL players I saw Tom Brady that was using the X3. You have a list here on the X3 Westside page about people that have implemented Westside barbell bear resistance and name off all these teams. So
So,
I assume with all those things, you can get in a lot of trouble if you just threw people's out there and made some false
well,
claims.
I'd be sued if I mentioned any of those names and it was not true. Like, hands down. And so would Westside.
Okay, yeah. So I
You
wanted to
know,
put that out there as some
right.
cool person here that I understand that, and we don't have like show us the receipts. I mean, I think some of the receipts are just you talking about it, and if it wasn't true, we'd hear some sort of redacted statement from at least from Westside Barbell.
Right. Right. And all that material was put together by Westside. In fact, where we're talking before the show, I was like, oh, the Buccaneers aren't on there. I happen to know they use X3 and the Westside program, at least to some degree, but they really didn't go through Westside. Obviously, Alex Guerrero was there.
And who is that for people that don't know?
Alex Guerrero is Tom Brady's physical therapist who basically took over strength and conditioning for first the Patriots, and then he was head of strength and conditioning for the Buccaneers, and now he's at the Raiders.
Okay, have you talked to him personally?
I talk to him, I don't know, twice a week, 3 times a week.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? Okay, so it's
Or
like
we're in
obviously,
lockstep.
yeah. Okay, so you can't just throw a guy's name out there and then people said, well, that's not true. I mean, if it wasn't, again, we would.
I tell you what, we'll do a show probably live, like the three of us.
Oh, that would be. I mean, that
Yeah,
that
I mean,
would be.
the
Yeah.
dude is a legend. I mean, he's like the secret behind Tom Brady not falling apart, in his 40s and still being able to play in the NFL, which is like ludicrous.
Okay, yeah, that would be amazing. So.
Yeah, I mean, I want people to know, like, if I lied about this shit, like, I would be in trouble.
Okay.
And,
Or at
I
the
mean,
very least, someone would call you out on it. Any name you drop would
here's
call you
another
out.
example. Like, the back of my book, the back cover of Weightlifting is a Waste of Time, there's a huge endorsement by the Miami Heat. And you notice the book has been in print for 3 years now, and it's still on the back cover. Like, I would be sued if I didn't have permission to use that by the lawyers of the Miami Heat.
Right, right. So,
Yeah, I mean,
sorry,
it's like I realize there's jealous losers all over the place who want to imagine everything I'm saying is a lie because they're losers and I'm the mirror they don't want to look in because it reminds them that they have not done jack shit. Sorry, guys, but
well, either
yeah,
that or like I think where maybe I come from is that I don't think you're lying, and I am intrigued the fact that yeah you have I think most people went watch like well this is any kind of NFL team or just any sports team has tons of money. They have tons of equipment. I think the last interview I tried to flash like they do have legit weight rooms with legit equipment there, and yet they are going to something very simplistic and small. And I think that's the part maybe people are kind of like surprised in and or to what degree they're using this stuff.
dude, so I knew about this about 2 years before I said anything about it for the exact reason we're discussing it because I was like, man, if I just throw that out there like without any real evidence, like people are gonna roast me. And then on top of that, I talked to Alex like, hey, can I get some photographs of the Raiders using it? And he's just like, I'll never get that through legal.
But yeah, it kind of makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we protect, what we do. It's kind of like our intellectual property. And it's like, really? No. So basically, everything that's on the website was a free endorsement. Because if a paid endorsement doesn't mean anything. Free endorsement from whatever player or whatever. If the team is mentioned, it's the strength coach that either myself has been talking to them or Westside Barbell. And they're talking to way more people. They have a whole staff, so.
Okay. So good. Picking back where we left off, these famous teams, famous players knew about you from Westside Barbell. And maybe we can even give a quick elevator pitch about who Westside Barbell is for anyone who doesn't know what they are.
Yeah, so Westside Barbell is a gym in Columbus, Ohio, that has broken more world records than any country on earth, including the United States in strength. It would be like if the Green Bay Packers won half of the Super Bowls. It like would actually make football not very interesting. That's how dominant Westside Barbell is. And now, I mean, since Louie Simmons died, he's the founder and an absolute genius. He wanted them to not work with powerlifters anymore after he died because he saw that as his thing. And also it's like in Louie's, I want to say 30, yeah, about 30 years of his programming with powerlifters is how they broke all those world records. Now, when he died, he left in his will that he wants Westside to focus on all the other sports. So, hence, who needs strength the most? Well, the NFL. Also, the strongest people in the world really do gravitate towards the NFL because no one's going to choose a career where they make hundreds of dollars and instead could make millions of dollars.
Right. Yeah.
Powerlifting is still in the hundreds of dollars.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah, I actually have a few theories on that. And part of it's just the danger. Like the joke in the NFL is it stands for not for long because you get injured and have to retire. You should go to a powerlifting meet if you think that. I mean, like half the audience, like I've been to some national and international powerlifting invitationals as a spectator, just to support some of the people that I know that are competing, and the fans, like half of them, walkers and canes and wheelchairs.
Yeah. No,
And they're all former powerlifters that have destroyed joints.
yeah.
And I ask all of these guys with banged up joints the same thing, like, did you train much with variable resistance? And they're like, no, but I wish I had. Otherwise, I'd be walking today.
What is interjecting in my head a little bit too is I always think like, well, one again, I like using free weights. I like using bands. Sometimes I like the why I like using free weights is I just like the feeling, the clang and bang of the weights, and I just like kind of the sensation of it. You lift something, it's harder, and then it gets easier, whatever. But what do you think about my theory would be like, yeah, if you push the limit too much, like with free, even now, like if I'm squatting or doing anything with like for free, something on my back, it's like I know that there's like a give and take, there's a pro and con there. So could you say that if someone was training with weights, but just maybe this is the argument I want to say, variable resistance might be a safer way of training heavy long term than say free
Yeah.
weights, and maybe that would be the best way of saying it versus I can train with free weights, but maybe not red line, or if I want to red line it, I mean, you're kind of playing with fire at that point.
So a lot of Stan Efferding once said that he wanted to figure out what the secret of Westside was. So he's one of the strongest guys on earth too. So he worked out with a lot of the Westside guys, and he said, it seems to me they just work harder. And I think he was kind of trying to be dismissive because he likes iron banging and he didn't, like the band thing. And it's like, okay, at elite levels, everybody trains hard. Like you don't meet anybody who's like, top 20 in the world on ESPN Strongman that's just like half-assing their training.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're absolute full tilt, like you said, red line every time.
Mm-hmm.
And so the difference is variable resistance allows you to train harder. Like you can't go all out in a squat. Otherwise, you just collapse with weight on your back.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to have a spotter or you have to have some hesitancy. Ultimately, like when I do squats, first of all, I'm working one leg at a time because humans walk and run on one leg at a time. And I'm not a kangaroo, which is the only animal that should be training both legs at the same time. But other than that, it's like when I'm done, I'm doing stretched range or diminishing range partials, right at the bottom of the squat. So I'm like hovering off the ground with my front leg, which is the only leg I'm training, at close to a 90-degree angle, and I just collapse on the fucking floor gasping for air.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can truly go to absolute fatigue. And yeah, I mean, if you got a bar on the back of your neck, which by the way, it's like we have something heavy to lift. Let's stack it on our vertebrae.
I'm laughing, but I love barbell squatting, so I'm like,
hey, yeah. I mean, I love scotch, but that doesn't mean it's good for you.
well, that's to my point. Yeah, much as I will say this, I think I said this recently. Like I like barbell squatting, but I am not pushing the weights that I used to push. It's more just it's finding like an ideal range that works for me that day and whatever with weight and
Yeah.
intensity. But to your point, I think I asked this to you brought this up to you before, but when I interviewed Jim Wendler, who I'm just putting this out there, but I think it's going to be supportive of your point, not necessarily contradicting it. Yeah, he said, I asked him the question point blank, how much do bands really? And by the way, Jim Wendler, one of the most famous strength conditioning coaches with a great 5-3-1 training method from Westside Barbell, etc. Broke a lot of records there. He said he didn't think bands were as big a deal. He said it kind of so what Zen Efferding said that it was just the work ethic, etc. So he kind of dismissed that. However, if you watch a lot of his stuff now, he says a lot like, he kind of tells people you don't have to. Well, even now, I think he had a motorcycle accident, but he doesn't train very heavy at all. A lot of stuff's just kind of mobility, get himself kind of going. And he talks even with his athletes he trains now, like he's not trying to have them, just crash them in the weight room. That can also just too much can kind of hurt their performance. Now he doesn't talk much about bands, but I asked him that question, so I don't know. I kind of support him both ways, but I want to kind of throw that in there that some people even from the outside maybe don't see what you're kind of claiming, but maybe some people do, that it was the rare resistance that set the
I
world
think
record.
they just don't understand. They just don't understand where the gains came from. And I will say, like, the culture at Westside is very much follow the program, do what I said. And there's not a lot of why. The why comes in when, and I think that's part of the reason they chose to work with me. I mean, that's what Tom, the CEO, told me. We have great conversation. Like the first time we got together, by the way, the connection to Westside finally, like, I heard they were recommending my product to all these people, and it's just like, gee, thanks, guys, but I'm not even in contact with anybody there. And I was just like scratching my head, like, how do I work with these people? And, I'm afraid of saying something offensive. Like, I don't know. And so I'm just sort of existing, knowing that this is happening. And then one of my really good friends who was Westside alumni, because I asked him, like, man, how do I work with Westside? And he's like, I don't know. I haven't talked to my friends at Westside in a couple of years, but let me reconnect. So a couple months went by, and my friend who was running, he was the strength and conditioning coach for On It, named Craig Bongelli. He ended up getting hired as head of education at Westside. And so he calls me and he's like, what do you think about us working together? And it was like, well, I was going to suggest that. How do you think that would work? And it's like, well, we tell people what to do with X3, but, it's like over Zoom or, they learn at Westside. They come into Westside. They go through a couple days of training, learn all the movements, get all their questions answered, and then, they're off on their own. And we can do a Skype call to follow up with members of their strength and conditioning staff. And they're like, if we just created some amazing video, like we could work together. And I'm like, yeah, like that'd be a great program. Like there are so many X3 users that are very interested in getting to elite levels of strength. And elite levels of muscularity. Also, I don't know if you saw the MRI study on the pectorals. And this is absolutely amazing. And the chances of this being true were, I mean, if you'd asked me before I read the study, just said what the premise of the study was, I was like, that'll never work. What they can do is they can do an MRI on your pec, and with statistical significance, which really just means 95% of the time, they can, with precision, know your 1 rep maximum.
Wow.
Just look at now, I mean, keep in mind, 1 rep maximum in a bench press. There are 2 whole ass other muscles.
That's what I was thinking right away. I'm like, how's that possible?
Like, dude, really? Like, you can just take 1 muscle in that movement. And I mean, so that shows strength equals size and size equals strength.
Wow. I mean, they must have to. Do they account for the other muscles though? At least in some sort of equation? Really?
No control.
I gotta see that. That sounds really surprising because I'm someone who has like a naturally small chest, shoulders. I'm sure a lot of my shoulders and triceps help out. That's what my thought would be. But wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, so basically, the association is so strong, it makes up for the variability of the triceps and the deltoids. That's how fucking
Uh,
powerful that is. So that probably means if they could actually account for the other muscles, it wouldn't just be a p-value of 0.05. It would be a p-value of 0.00001.
yeah.
Like crazy accurate. And
Wow.
so, like, all this talk about training for size and training for strength, it's all the same shit.
Yeah.
So Craig's one of my really good friends, and now he's head of education. So I flew out to Westside, and so we were going to have this conversation, me and Tom and Craig. And I was like, oh man, they're probably going to be like, you book weightlifting is a waste of time. You need to like denounce that if we're going to work together. Not at all. Like, they were like, that was a good book.
Really? Wow.
I'm just like, really? Like I'm looking, like, where's Ashton Kutcher? Like, this is definitely getting punked right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, they're like, I mean, like, they're like, it was certainly they called it a clickbait title. Like, yeah, it's absolutely a clickbait title. But I mean, so is the title of every successful YouTube video. So everybody can just off.
Well, it was shocking to me. I mean, I kept saying that after you did the whole thing with the NFL using X3. I mean, again, I kept saying like the level of significance of Westside Barbell putting a stamp of approval, and I don't know if they have any other training programs other than this one that I know of.
They do not.
Okay. Stamp of approval on something like this that is a band related program from someone like you who is going on saying whether things a waste of time. Again, with the irony of Westside Barbell, most people's brains is a weight bar, not a resistance band bar. I thought that was huge, and they're putting
Did
the
you see the
reputation on
new
the line.
logo they approved?
Well, I did just see it with is that on your website with the dog and the foot plate?
Dude, share. Yeah, Nitro is the dog's name.
Oh, okay.
That was
Yeah,
Louie's
that's
dog.
hilarious.
So, I mean, like, they actually approved of a different logo where the dog that's normally like deadlifting or whatever, because it's a dog, I don't know what you call that, lifting a bar, barbell. Now he's pulling X3 and he's standing on a ground plate.
Well, let me ask you this, because this is what might go through my head. Because as I was going to say, this they're putting their reputation and legacy right here on the line, which says a lot. They must have thought Louis thought something about bands very strongly as a standalone thing. Even though on the conjugate method, we'll get into it a little bit, did a lot of different things and exercise and rotations and stuff like that. But the next thing probably like, well, was this just a money grab? Are they getting? I'm not saying I divulge what the relationship is, but I could see someone being like, well, they must have just got paid off really well to get this. Or my point is, how much should their it seems like they really trusted you and the X3 system to put the reputation on the line. Either that and or again,
Yeah.
worst case scenario,
Well,
devil's advocate.
they had been basically testing it and using it for the last 4 years without my knowledge. So they were sold before I landed.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, here's what we're doing with X3, and I'm just sitting there like slowly nodding, like, yeah, sure, of course you are, and I'm just like, wow.
Well, and
On the inside, like, this is awesome.
I'd
Like,
assume their training place, I know you said it's more or less a museum now. I always wanted to go check that out, but I assume they're still working with athletes and a level of performance. But I'd assume also if you walked in there, I wouldn't think it's an open studio with a bunch of X3 stuff on the ground. I think there's going to be barbells and racks a little bit, I'd assume. But can you touch on? I mean, are they still using free weights and or what capacity? Or I'd assume they're using variable resistance rigged like a barbell or some sort of apparatus and X3
so
supplement or
they
something like that.
developed another type of band that was supposed to be used with free weights. Very different than X3, but you still need custom bench presses and squat racks and overhead press racks, and how are we going to set it up to use these bands? And they're made by Stroops.
Yeah, I heard of
So
them. Yeah.
you've seen, yeah, yeah. So they have a couple of those things, but I mean, and that's great for like if I if I had a commercial gym, like, that's what I would have in the commercial gym, mostly because people would just steal the X3s. Because the gyms that have got X3s, they walk out the door.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's too small, it's too compact, it's too easy to just grab and walk away with. So like there's some of that, but for the most part, it's just a big open space with black painted walls and really cool lighting, and it's just X3s.
Okay. That would be something if you got the picture. I'd love to throw that up there if you can get a
They're
hold
a
of
little protective, but
it.
yeah, I'll get a picture of
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get into people might be vaguely familiar. Like I've gone down the rabbit hole. I think I had the book at one point, but I don't remember much. Brain doesn't recall the whole much of the conjugate system. It was complicated in itself sometimes, at least the way it seemed it was. So, how did you? I mean, you told me this last time that I was surprised that because I think of X3, I think simplicity. It's the one exercise that failure.
Mhm.
You only had, I think maybe it was eight-ish exercises, something like that. And now you said there's a plethora of exercises, some of which you didn't even know about or didn't come up with, and they kind of threw at you.
Yeah.
How would you describe this Westside Barbell X3 training system as a whole?
I mean,
Loaded question, but
I, yeah, sure. I mean, I just my general. So when we started going through it, I think they thought I would be like, no, 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 we can't do that one. No, 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 that doesn't make any sense. No, I actually just learned a shit ton from these guys because there's a lot of things where they were doing it with athletes. I don't think they could have explained it scientifically as well as I could. So a lot of the things that they were doing, I was like, oh no, that makes perfect sense. And then I'd throw some research out there, and they're like, we were wondering if this may, like it's worked with athletes and it's worked with athletes for years, but like Louie wasn't all about collecting, APA references. Because his method of proving to everybody that he was right was breaking world records. So he didn't really, oh yeah, there's a scientist. He's just like, I don't care. um, so I mean, now we're sort of backfilling the science and a lot of the stuff that they've been very successful with.
so
And like they came up with movements that I wouldn't have had a clue about. Also, like overhead press. I always taught people that, head through the window
hmm
like this. That's okay if you're training for like Olympic lifting.
hmm
But
right,
if you're not, you want maximum engagement of musculature, it's way better to tilt your head back and do it like this,
makes sense. Yeah.
not head through the window, because you get more range of motion
Okay.
with the whole shoulder. I mean, that's a very practical observation that once they told me, it was like, okay, like
Okay.
I never would have seen that.
How would you still describe it simplistically if someone had said like what I got a gist of what it is, but what I mean, how many exercises am I doing? What's the intensity like?
Yeah, there's
Rep
something
set?
like 32 different movements that are in there, and you're right, it's not simple, but basically you just start on month one and it changes every month. So it's really like a periodization type of the conjugate method. Like
Yeah.
you're shifting and doing different things. A lot of it is for the psychology of like if everything you do, like imagine you have the force bar and all you're trying to do is break your records all the time. At some point, you get so strong that you're like, oh fuck, I got a leg workout tomorrow, and I think I'm,
I've said that with even with the system in general, like it'll kill you. So I love that you're saying right now.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you're just like, I mean, I don't know how the hell I'm going to beat that number. Like, I might die, and
Yeah.
so it's nice psychologically to shift from like, let's say, heavy reps, lots of rest between sets to lighter reps. The rest between sets, you hold at extension.
Okay. So a lot of
Like just so you're just getting the central nervous system conditioned to be loaded for extended periods of time. Like wow, what a nervous system difference.
is everything. So I take it not everything's going to. Well, maybe not because I know your psychology behind it. Is everything taken to failure in some degree, or no? Throughout the
Yeah.
months and yeah,
Yes.
everything.
Yeah. Yeah. If there's no reps in reserve.
Okay. So I guess pushback is, I mean, let's say, and maybe this changes, and you kind of did this a little bit with the hypertrophy program you guys had, where you went to failure, but you would do, I guess, I don't know, textbook objectively, you'd have the lower-ish intensity. You could manipulate the weights and bands, because I guess the old school Mensa hit people might say, well, it's once at the failure, you're kind of done. It's one set. That's all you had. But I know you guys were doing some multiple sets in here. So is it kind of multiple sets on some days or
You would still call this high intensity training.
okay.
Like I think that, I mean, first of all, I think, and I'm going to be doing some documentation about this because I want the world to wake up to this point. High intensity training and volume training are doing the same thing.
I agree.
It's a collection of fatigue. It's just when you go high intensity, what limits you is just your central nervous system's ability to bring it. Like you can't train with the highest of intensities, for 20 sets in a workout. Maybe 10. You're much better with like 6 or 7.
Well, then you kind of have to define because you're saying high intensity, you're saying like you're going to failure versus I was saying textbook high intensity is like, well, if the weight's heavier, then it is higher intensity than say 315 is by default higher than 225, even if you went to 225 to failure, you know what I mean? So that's why I would say textbook when they say high intensity as like just objective load in the bar.
I'm talking about
Getting
depth
to
of
failure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so high reps, low reps, it's like you're absolutely going with diminishing range. So diminishing range is a big thing. I mean, when I'm doing repetitions and then all of a sudden I can't get to the top anymore and I have to shorten my repetitions. So each set you're going to momentary muscular failure maybe 5 times. So let's say I do a set of chest press and let's say low reps, so high weight. So I got like the orange band, I do 10 reps and then I take 10 breaths. So I do it rest pause style. So I go to fatigue 5 times in diminishing range. And then I do another set 10 breaths later, and then I do 5 more points of fatigue. So let's say I do that 3 times. Well, I just went to momentary muscular failure 15 times in 2 minutes with my chest. You think that's going to be a great growth stimulus?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Fuck yeah, especially because I did it with a fresh muscle that's loaded with glycogen. Now, somebody else can take 2 hours and do 15 sets of bench press, and they'll have really sore joints. And, will they grow the same? Maybe. Yeah, maybe it'll be about equal. What Dr. Sean Conley demonstrated with his study. This is the guy in Michigan. He showed that basically, and like it sounds like the study was written for marketing reasons, but basically he did the ACSM hypertrophy program versus the X3 standard 1-set program. So what they determined was the same amount of muscle was built. Actually, the X3 group was slightly higher, but not statistically significant higher. But 82% less time under tension. They're the same, but one is ramming a lot of work into a short period of time. And I would argue that when we're dealing with normal people with normal genetics, a lot of people don't really respond all that well to weights, but they're going to respond to this.
And then just to keep staying on the program itself here, so how many days per week? Just like logistical stuff, if people are interested in actually seeing it. We wanted to try and pull it in here, but maybe on a future video we'll get into the program itself.
Yeah. So most of the programming is built around, well, 100% of the programming is built for competitive athletes. So it imagines you got to be fresh for your sport. So it's not like devastated every day. So it's basically 4 days a week.
Okay.
Whichever 4 days you want to do.
How long are the workouts?
About 40 minutes.
Okay. So a lot different than someone who's coming into X3 thinking of finishing it up in, was it like 10 minutes or something like that, or 15
Yeah,
minutes?
it's more than the original program, but it's less than the hypertrophy program.
Okay. All right. And right now, just other logistical stuff, it's a membership fee what can they expect to get out of this? Like when you get in there and sign up and everything?
So there's different, so you change your programming by the month. Like 1 month you do, the athletics program, and then the next month you do the hypertrophy program, and so And I mean, we're adding different levels of this. There'll be about like 20 different levels. And sometimes you, depending on your priorities, you might want to pick 3 of them and alternate between the 3. Like, let's say you're an aspiring bodybuilder. So you're going to do the hypertrophy program. You're going to do the athletics program, because what the athletics program does is really trains your neurology to switch on more muscle. And I mean, that's the kind of thing that I didn't put in the hypertrophy program because I'm not an expert at it.
So when you jump in the Westside Barbell program, you can pick your goal. Is that kind of something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very much like there's a menu, and you need to like decide which direction you want to go. Like, somebody who's a sprinter will do. I mean, we haven't even put half of the material together that's going to ultimately go in this program. So, like, there will be months and months of different stuff that you do. And what's nice is every time you switch it up, like, you're not trying to like shock the muscle or anything. That's bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're doing is changing your approach so that you can chase different goals at different times, and they're all synergistic. So like when you do the athletics program, there's a lot of neurological changes that are happening. Well, once you have those neurological changes and then you go back to the hypertrophy program, each band you're doing 10% more reps.
Do you need to have I'm assuming you got to have just like coordinate stuff and maybe logistical stuff and just like what you're doing. Do you have to have the X3 system with the certain colored bands? And if you have the X3 system, what kind of stuff? Basically, what do you need to do this program?
The X3, and you need the squat belt. Like, okay. That's a big.
You don't need the force bar. You don't need, just can be the basic.
No. Yeah, okay. I don't want people to, save your money.
Okay.
Like the force bar is great if you're just like, you really want to know the data and you want your strength jumps to be as fast as possible. Because I think sometimes people may stop a quarter rep short of their greatest performance ever, and they don't know it. Yeah, just one more quarter rep, and then it's just like, you're good.
Okay.
But you don't know. So the force bar is great at that. But like, it's expensive. It's $1,000.
Yeah.
Like, I think the force bar is great for people who don't have X3 and then they see it and then with the screen, next to it. Like, sometimes I do a video of me exercising here and here's my phone screen, and they're like, "Oh, it's heavy." I get it.
I want to respect your time, and you did bring up something that I wish I was going to start with, which I know you have your ear to a lot of people in the fitness industry that are totally saying things contrary to maybe what you're saying, and also pushing things that are not resistance band related. Not only I think you get along with them, but I think it's funny because I think obviously you have a business model that supports the use of your product succeeding, but I think there's people that might agree with you behind the scenes that also don't seem to want to ever talk about or associate with the idea of a product such as yours that can seem small.
Sure. Everyone should, there's another thing everybody should keep in mind. When somebody's on YouTube, you and me included, we do have a business model. And like, there's plenty of people who see the research of variable resistance, which is undeniable. There's almost nothing in academic literature that has no contradictory information. There's one study that said variable resistance produces poor results. But if you read the study, the weightlifting control group could lift whatever weights they wanted, like whatever they deemed as appropriate. The variable resistance group could only use TheraBands.
Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah.
Yeah, one piece of TheraBand, which is like 5 pounds of force. So one group trained with real weights, the other group trained with 5 pounds of force. Well, okay. I mean, is that really a study worth printing? I don't think so. I think it's just dishonest. But every other study shows vast superiority with variable resistance. And I think a lot of the guys who might say something negative about like band training, here's another thing. Bands by themselves, not a lot of use. Like, you need something to keep your wrist neutral, which is a bar, and your ankles neutral, which is a plate. that the bands need to run freely underneath. So without those two things, if you're missing one of those two things, you're not going anywhere. Like you really need to have the right equipment. And so like no one's ever come right out and said X3, like no reputable people. Yeah. There's a couple clowns have said that, but they don't know what they're talking about. But like guys who have like, let's say there's a particular influencer out there who has this same handsome haircut, and he's charming and funny, similar to me. He might say, I like the exercises that are in gyms. Well, also he sells programs that are to be applied in gyms. So, if somebody's got a business model, like, okay, that's your business model then. So, yeah. I mean, you're here. This is one of the few times I'm actually going to quote a liberal, but I mean, they do say smart things from time to time. So Upton Sinclair said, "It's amazing how few people will agree with you when their paycheck depends on them not agreeing with you."